Today I'm joined by Calem Nieuwenhof, one of the most talented young players in all of Australian football, plays for Western Sydney Wanderers and of course the Olyroos. Thank you so much for joining me today, Calem.
Thanks for having me on.
So my first question is always quite an easy one. Just where did your passion and love for football first begin?
I think, honestly, yeah, it goes way back. Like, my dad played a bit growing up, just locally for clubs like Manly United and that. So as soon as I was old enough, I guess he had me running around the backyard, kicking balls around. So, and then yeah, just from there, I haven't looked back. I've always loved football, and I grew up on the Northern Beaches, so I played. My local club was Calem, and then growing up, I playing more and more, and eventually I got into the Manly United setup, and then from there, just yeah, kept progressing and didn't look back really.
And with Australia, we're lucky we have a big selection of sports, particularly in places like Manly. They got the Manly Seagulls rugby league team, but we've also got cricket. Everyone loves their cricket or, what have you, a bunch of other sports. So for you, was it football that was always the only interest in you in pursuing, playing wise, or did you play other sports, maybe like rugby league, maybe cricket, maybe AFL?
Yeah, for me, I always knew that I wanted to be a professional footballer. Like there was no other sports that I ever wanted to go pro in, but definitely growing up, yeah, as you said, Northern Beaches especially, there's so many different sports. I played cricket for a local club when I was growing up, and I did heaps of the nippers. I surfed a lot because we lived close to the beach. But yeah, for me, there was no question. It was always football was my main sport.
And, you said you always wanted to be a professional footballer, but I think a lot of people have that dream as a kid of being a professional footballer, if I'm honest. But there comes a point sometimes where some of us, maybe we're 12, maybe we're a bit older, we realize, I'm not that good. Maybe this is a bit of a pipe dream. Maybe this is a bit unrealistic. But for you, when was that moment where you realized, you know what, playing professional football for a living is actually something that you could realistically achieve?
Probably, yeah, it was, as I said before, it was always a dream of mine, and yeah, it's a dream of a lot of kids growing up. I probably didn't actually like recognize how close it was until I was 17 or 18, and I started having the opportunity to train up with the first team when I was back at Sydney. That was probably when I first realized it was, yeah, a real possibility. But yeah, no, it's so interesting looking back, and obviously growing up and going through all the age groups, like from under 12, 13s all the way to 18s, it's not always the kids that are the best players in those early age groups that end up making the career out of it. And more than often, yeah, the best kids in those age groups tend to fall off if they don't have that attitude and stuff. So I can definitely see the like yeah, how important it is to really have a good attitude and stay persistent throughout all those years to end up yeah making a career out of it.
And when you first joined Sydney FC's youth academy, I know it's not first team yet, but still it would be quite a bit of a step up from, playing Manly United or your local team, just sort of playing for fun. This is now a professional team. This is now, training you to become a professional football, this big academy with, pretty big expectations and a bit of strictness. Did you find that difficult at all to make the step up into this sort of new lifestyle? And what were some of the things that you particularly found the most difficult, if any?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is a big step up, at any A League club going from NPL level up to A League level. I think there's a real difference in quality because there's so many great footballers in all the teams, and like when I look at like my team this year and the Wanderers, it's crazy some of the players we have and the careers they've had, like Morgan Schneiderlin and Marcelo, who played at top leagues in Europe. So, but I think it helps a lot when you've got a really good group of players around you and coaches that really encourage the young ones and like they see all the players as equal and say everyone really has a voice and yeah, you're not ever felt like you're any less than any of the other players. So that's really helpful when you are coming up into the first name.
And you did, of course, achieve your dream of playing first team football. You've achieved it many times now, but for the very first game, it was actually in the Asian Champions League, big prestigious competition. And it's a bit different to what you would have experienced, certainly playing NPL football. So, what do you remember about that whole match and that whole experience being part of the Champions League squad? And for your first ever game, how do you personally think you went during the match?
Yeah, I remember. I remember my first game and yeah, a few games in the Asian Champions League pretty vividly because um yeah, I'd come from playing NPL and then all of a sudden I was standing across the field from some crazy players like Aaron Moy and Oscar and Hulk, the Brazilian. So it was definitely a pretty surreal moment for me. But I remember, yeah, pretty vividly that I think there were some injuries in the team at the time, so I sort of got the call up, which was a bit unexpected. And I was happy with how I played, and I think I had a solid first few games. And you know, it helped because I was part of a good team, and I'd been training up with the first team for over a year, so I felt pretty comfortable. And yeah, I was happy with how that all went, that transition.
And a player like Aaron Moy, you just mentioned, obviously you're a midfielder. So he's essentially, your direct competition on the field. Being a young player, not really having much first team experience, coming up against what I consider an elite footballer with a great footballing mind. Just how do you think you went against him, and what were some of the things about his game that maybe you took note of and, penciled down for later on?
Yeah, I remember it so vividly because yeah, I just remember staying on the other side of the field looking across and I was a bit in disbelief that, you know, I was about to come up against Aaron White, who's such a great Australian footballer and yeah, one of the best, you know, Socceroos. And I just remember, yeah, like he was a different level in terms of his quality. His passing was amazing and on the ball, just his awareness and football intelligence was really a level above a lot of the other players that and definitely the players that I'd played with in the past. That it was really good to see, yeah, him playing, and I definitely learned a lot from that game, and yeah, from watching him.
You had a lot of firsts at Sydney FC, your first game, your first A-League game as well. But your first goal was a special one, and that come in Sydney FC colours. It kind of went viral, not really across the world because it's hard to go viral across the world, but certainly across Australia. Matter of fact, every time you lined up a shot for about a year after this goal, commentators would, kind of bring it back up again. So for that first ever goal, it was an absolute beauty. What went through your mind when the ball come at your feet? And did you expect it to go in? Was this something that you planned, or did you kind of just one of those ones where you hit it and you hoped that it just, got the right connection and ended up in the back of the net?
Here's Calem Nieuwenhof. Oh, what a way to mark his debut. Calem Nieuwenhof. Remember the name. It all starts here in the A-League in Wollongong with a quite splendid strike. 19 years young and writing some headlines here.
Absolutely fantastic strike. When we made that run earlier on in the half, and when I said to you, what a talent, well, it certainly exacerbated that comment. What an absolute rocket.
Yeah, I'd definitely lean more towards the hidden hope. Like I know that I can hit the ball well, but yeah, I don't think any player's ever really expecting to score from like well outside the box. So I was just really, yeah, I couldn't believe it. Like I sort of there was some space that opened up for me, and I took a touch and sort of just, yeah, as you said, like hit and hoped it a little bit, and I was yeah lucky enough that it ended up going in. But yeah, I was really again it was another surreal experience, and I couldn't really believe it. But yeah, it was one that I was so happy with.
And how was that to deal with, on the field, pretty much your whole rest of the Sydney FC career? Every time you got the ball from a sort of similar distance, I remember being in the crowd at some of those games, the crowd would be shouting, shoot. The commentators, I know you can't hear it on the field, but they would bring it up. Did that kind of get in your head that maybe, you can have another pop and try and recreate it again?
Yeah, it's definitely always in the back of your head if you know if the opportunity presents itself. But I probably think yeah haven't had another shot like that until recently in the what 2 or 3 years later. So yeah, it's not something that I like planned for or anything, but definitely it's always in the back of your head. And if the opportunity is there, I'll definitely have a go when it presents itself.
And unfortunately, your time at Sydney FC wasn't all wonder goals and Asian Champions League. You did have a real, tough time with injury concerns and injury problems. So for you, achieving this dream, breaking through first team football, and then all of a sudden it's kind of stop started because of all these injury issues. Mentally, how hard was that for you to deal with? And was there ever a moment where you thought, maybe pursuing something else instead of football due to these injury, issues that you had recurring was something that you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, obviously it was such a tough time because I'd sort of just broken through and had my first little taste of like A-League, being in a full-time environment and playing. And then I sort of had 2 seasons where had 2 major injuries and it kept me sidelined for much of those 2 seasons. So it was really frustrating, and also, yeah, like it was difficult being, because you become like less part of the team, when they're all going out to train and you're stuck in the gym doing your rehab. So it was definitely really tough, but I definitely persisted throughout those 2 years and did everything I could to get back on the field. And now I'm just happy that I had finally a full season of fitness where I could play every game. So I feel like I'm in a good spot now. But it was never really, I didn't ever think of like pursuing anything else or anything. Like I was definitely stayed really persistent to football, and I was confident that when I did come back, I could have another go again and start playing consistently.
You did mention you played every game this season. You did come back. You come back better than ever, but it was a bit of a change of environment. You moved from Sydney FC to crosstown rivals Western Sydney Wanderers. How did that move come about? And was there any sort of, hesitation in your head knowing that you're going from Sydney FC to their rivals? I know when you first joined, Milos Ninkovic also made the, switch. So a bit of the pressure was taken off you and a bit of the vitriol from the fans was taken off you. But was there ever a moment where you thought, maybe Wanderers isn't the club to join, or did you not really have concerns about joining, the rivals of Sydney FC? Sorry.
Yeah, not really. There was never any concern, and it was a pretty easy decision for me, to be honest, and a quick decision. I don't think it's a bit different me going to the crosstown rivals because I obviously wasn't as big a part of Sydney FC as maybe some other players were, but I was sort of, it was a kind of limbo. And as I said, I was coming off 2 major injuries, so Sydney was sort of hesitant to put anything on the table for me, which I understand. But when Wanderers gave me an opportunity, I sort of jumped at it, and I couldn't be more grateful because they did take a leap of faith with me. And obviously, I kind of foreseen how the season's gone, with the amount of minutes I've played. But I couldn't be happier to the coaches and the recruiters for putting their trust in me and bringing me across to the club. But definitely, I haven't looked back, and I'm so happy with how the season's gone this year.
And your season did go very well. You were one of the best midfielders in the whole competition at the A-League. Considering you had not much experience in the A-League before this season started, to playing every game, being one of the standout players in the whole league, what do you think it was about the environment at Western Sydney that sort of started to get the best out of you and made you flourish and start to fulfill some of this enormous potential you have as a player?
Can have a go himself here. Break for Calem Nieuwenhof, who steers it into the corner for his first goal in Wanderers colours. And the Wanderers have come from behind to lead 3-2. Fleur into the box, Nieuwenhof. It's 4. And Calem Nieuwenhof has goals in back-to-back matches for Western Sydney Wanderers. Kriev. Has he turned back into trouble? He has. Pitched by Nieuwenhof. Borello. Nieuwenhof. 2-0. Easy as you like. Calem Nieuwenhof's 4th of the campaign. Brandon Borello gets an assist to go with his goal. And the Wanderers are 2 clear. Ninkovic able to turn. Nieuwenhof encouraged to shoot by the fans. And does so.
To the back of the net. It's a brilliant strike from a hugely talented player, but just not enough eagerness in defence for Sydney.
Yeah, I think the 2 main things with the coaches and the team I was a part of. I was lucky enough. When I first made the switch, I definitely didn't come expecting to be a full-time starting player or anything. I knew I'd have to work hard to prove myself and try to work my way up. And I was lucky that because of a couple of injuries that's what actually opened up for me in round one. And then yeah, I was really grateful that the coaches, Marco and the assistants put trust in me and started me. And I was happy with how I played the first couple of games, and I think that set me up for the rest of the season. But also, I think the main thing was the team that I was a part of. Like I was playing in front of like some really solid players. Like I had Marcelo and Tommy behind me that are such great leaders, and they can really help you through the games. I was playing next to the likes of Roman and behind players like Ninkovic. So I think being part of such an amazing team, full of experience and really looking to help out all the younger players, definitely made the season a lot easier for me.
The Western Sydney Wanderers fans absolutely love you. You know, they took you in with open arms and you've become a real fan favorite. How does that feel to know that, you know, when you go out on the field, pretty much everyone in the fan base of Western Sydney Wanderers just loves you and is hoping that you succeed? And what are some experiences with the, you know, RBB and stuff that you've had being a player? I know it looks awesome being on the outside, seeing when you guys have a big win, all the teams celebrating with the RBB. But what's that actually like being a player and being part of all that?
Yeah, it's unreal, and I can't overstate how good they've been this year. All the fans that come out like week in week out to support us, and they all get like so behind us. And the RBB's been phenomenal this year, particularly in a few of the big games like the derbies where they show up in real numbers and get behind us. But definitely, it's really good and supporting to have that group behind all us players. And for me individually, it gives me a lot of confidence, and that they get behind me and the team, and it lets us play to the best of our ability on the field. So couldn't be more grateful to the fans that support us week in, week out.
And during your whole career so far, at least, you've worn number 28 on your jersey. Is there any particular special meaning behind that number, or was it just kind of what was available at Sydney FC and then you thought, you know, it's available at Wanderers, you might as well carry it on?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. There's nothing behind it. I think that was the number that I was sort of thrown when I was first at Sydney, and then when I came across the Wanderers, they asked us all if we had any preferences, and I didn't really mind, so they just gave me 28 again. So maybe I'll have to stick with that.
And you're, of course, going away with the national team soon, the Olyroos, to a big tournament. You've been part of a few Australia squads at different levels. How different of an atmosphere is it being in a national team camp compared to, you know, for example, Wanderers training and such?
Yeah, it's definitely a big shift in the environment, because when we go away with the national team, it's all players my age, so it's a bit different, and probably and also the games we play, it's a bit different style. I've found like there's no massive like leaders or stuff like we have in Wanderers. How we've got Marcelo and stuff that gets behind the team, but it's definitely it's a different environment, and it's one that I really enjoy, because I can also like maybe be more of a leader myself. And also, the players in Olyroos, I know most of them, and I've played with them throughout the years, so it's a really cool environment to go into.
And quick hello to your mum in the background and your dog who's barking. But, you know, we're talking about the Olyroos. When you first put on that green and gold, you seen, you know, fans don't get the real kit with the real proper badge. We get a fake one. So when you first put on the green and gold, you've seen the real badge, you've seen your name on the back of the jersey. How good of a moment was that, if you can put into words? And where were you when you first got the call to any sort of national team, and what did you do to celebrate?
It's such an awesome feeling representing your country. I only got my first couple games recently in the last camp in Italy, but that was an awesome feeling to be able to represent Australia. And I remember I'd been in, I think, the young Socceroos camps like a few years ago, but I'd never had the opportunity to play. So it was such a big step being able to finally play in a few friendly games. And it's unbelievable coming from obviously a little kid growing up. You never really think that you're gonna play for Australia one day, but I mean to be able to play even at the under 23s level, I'm super proud of. And yeah, it was a massive achievement for me.
And we're about halfway through 2023, but finally, what can we expect to see if all things go correctly from Calem Nieuwenhof for the rest of 2023?
Hopefully, hopefully just more of the same. I want to keep playing as many games as possible for both club and hopefully the Olyroos. And yeah, I still believe I've got so much more improvement in me, and I'm really excited to keep developing and see where this all takes me.
Well, hopefully it all goes to plan, and hopefully we see you in a different type of green and gold in the future. I agree with Marco Ruden. I believe you should be in the Socceroos sooner rather than later. But thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed the chat. I appreciate you sharing your football story, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for the chat.
This video is sponsored by Arrow Sport. Go to the link in the description, and the friendly team at Arrow Sport will help you create your own football dream jersey. Whether it's starting from scratch or using one of their many templates on their website, creating a jersey with Arrow Sports is easy, and prices start from just $50. Go to www.arrowsport.com.au and make your football kit dreams become a reality.